Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on June 28, 2022 at approximately 6:24 a.m. PST. So, hopefully you've got an idea in your mind already as to where your life requires changing in your eyes. Now remember, the whole catch to it is this. The only person you have to really that you've really got to focus on. Well, no, not the only person, but the primary person, and this is hard for most people from what I've gathered. Take a look at where your life is. Airborne Fluffy. Take a look where your life is right now. Are you content with it? Now, all of this has to tie together, and what I've found over the years, either through myself or through dealing with over 80,000 clients, is this applies to everybody, no matter what their walk of life. Okay, and the thing with any guidelines I look at, every tool, the first thing to realize is I bill myself as a spiritual guide because every tool that I offer is a tool that, if it applies to my life, I am using it. Okay. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, because realistically, let's take a look at the brass tacks of it. Every one of you, no matter how you vote, no matter who you're connected to, or how high your intellect, you're going to die. And you're going to leave your physical stuff behind. It's not going with you. Okay. The ancient Egyptians had the same idea. We'll have all this stuff, and then when we die, we'll just put it in our tomb with us so we can take it to the next life. Well, here's the drawback. They thought that, and now what happens is we get these ancient tombs that we're finding. The people are dead, the people are gone, even the ones that were buried alive. They're all gone, they're all dead. But the material stuff is still there. They didn't get to take it with them. Okay, and this is something you have to realize. It doesn't matter how much stuff you have. When you die, it's being left behind. Now, yes, I am extremely grateful to both my parents and my eldest brother, and my one eldest brother. Well, my only eldest brother and my eldest brother. They left stuff behind for me. Absolutely appreciate it. And certainly, if that's your reason for putting stuff together, just make sure that the people you're dealing with, and the ring comes. This is good. Make sure that the people that are close to you, that matter to you, certainly do what you can to leave them something behind. Okay, so they don't have to work quite as hard. But make certain you get it through to them that the material stuff is just stuff. Okay, like my office right now is set up where I don't have to worry about the layout of it. I've got a few things set up that I'm in the middle of working with. But the material world is just ways of making your life a little bit more comfortable. Sometimes. Okay, now I like the way it was put one day by a millionaire. He looks at me and he goes, he says, I've been miserable rich and I've been miserable poor. Hands down, I would rather be miserable rich. Okay. But he also turned around and goes, money will not buy you happiness. But it does afford you the opportunity of looking for it in a whole lot more places. The nice part about it from my standpoint is I found the one thing I thought I would never find. Okay, that was peace of mind. Happiness starts here. Are you content with your life the way it is? You don't have to know where you're heading. You don't have to know what your life is going to look like 30 years down the road. I hear so many parents tell their kids, you have to know where you're going by the time you're 20 in order to get ahead. In order to have your life set properly. And that is absolutely wrong. And the reason I say that is, in my experience with over 80,000 clients, the reality is that people have, when you think about it, people have are usually in their late 40s, early 50s before they have a clue of what they desire to do with their life. Okay. In all fairness, I've been working in the psychic industry now for 22 years. And I finally got it through my head that what I really desire to be doing is not working in the consulting field. Don't get me wrong, I'm not quitting that. Okay. But where my real focus is on writing. Net result, I've got 6 books in print right now. A 7th one comes out of the print shop sometime this week. Okay. And I've got 5 more I'm in the process of writing. I've got 31 more that I'm in the process of writing, but 5 more. 5 more? Let's see. We have the Return to Paradise, the second printing of the Races of the Worlds. Hopefully, I'll get Races of the Worlds Volume 2 out. Okay. I am currently putting together a poetic anthology. Okay, and of course I'm going to have Mr. Dreamcatcher Returns, which is a second book in the Dreamcatcher series. Now, do understand, I called it Mr. Dreamcatcher because it's referring to an actual Dreamcatcher, not to Dreamcatcher as in the Stephen King phenomena. Personally, I'm not a fan of it. The only writer I can think of offhand that I was ever a fan of, and not all of his work. I'm trying to force my way through one book. Okay, but J.R.R. Tolkien is the one author that I really did look up to. He was the guy that wrote The Hobbit, which I'm certain you're aware of. But that was the first book that I couldn't bring myself to put down very often. But with that in mind, okay, take a look at where your life is. Ask yourself, are you content with everything you're looking at in your life? It doesn't have to be a perfect life. If you're content with it, so be it. If not, that's where you change things. You focus on eliminating the things in your life that you're not content with. That's where you put your focus. Because by doing that, you will be able to actually move forward. You eliminate everything in your life you're not content with, or you redirect the energy. And this is why I talk about getting the junk moved out of the area. Because you redirect the energy of anything you're not content with. And once you've done that, all you're left with is a world that you're content with. That's the whole catch to it. Okay. I would love to know why I have itchy ears, but what do I do with it? So, you take a look at it, and when you start eliminating things, and this is why, now you'll notice with this one, okay, this is why I talked about a list. Now, I put the list together. I don't expect you to read this, but see all these? Most of those are completed. Okay. And I have these 3, so I ended that. Here we have, right here at the top, I now have today's date. And I took the last 5 items that were in this list, added them to the top of today's date, and then added a few more. But by keeping the goals on your list down to a 15-minute to half hour, you can get things checked off. In this case, I ended up yesterday with 1, 2, I ended up with getting completed 17 different things. Okay, so I can look back and go, gee, I had a really productive day. Okay, I've already got, and I took the 5 from yesterday, right, that I actually, because I started a second column, took those 5 and added the 2 that I missed on the rest of it, and then added a couple. So, you take a look at the way your life is. Are you content? Okay, if you're not, and again, you don't have to know what you're aiming at doing when you get older. Okay, and please, absolutely, the one thing I did find out is I was always under the belief Okay, obviously I didn't get the message. That as you get older, your body starts to break down. Right? You'll get older, you'll get slower, you'll have more trouble with memory, etc., etc. Well, I'll tell you. Here's a nice little point. Okay, I destroyed my leg at 12, so of course I started to break down early, and I am currently in better shape than I was 15 years ago. So apparently, I'm getting older and getting healthier. I mean, it's funny. This morning I figured, oh, okay, my blood pressure's got to be up because I'm overheating, etc. Turns out my blood pressure was sitting. Actually, where was it? See if I can do this without actually scrambling things. Nope. It'll come up. 121/73 with a pulse of 77. Okay. I thought my body was running a little off kilter. As it turns out, it wasn't. Okay. But I keep very close tabs on my blood pressure right now because of the stroke I had. I don't feel like having another one. But you take everything in your life that you're not content with and you start correcting it. And what I mean by correcting is not talk to other people if they're happy. Okay. But by removing the clutter from your house, what you end up with is you end up having this neat little situation of the energy runs more smoothly. You'll feel more energetic. You'll feel more energetic. You'll feel much more relaxed by getting the junk out of the way. Now, don't take my word for it. I find it fascinating that many people will turn around and they'll say, oh, I'm content the way things are. But you watch their behavior. They're nervous as all get out. They are very, very withdrawn from people. Okay. And, you look at this going, are you actually content, or are you simply comfortable with that path because you've been doing it for so long? Now, I used to live in a warehouse and it never even fazed me. I mean, it wasn't as big as a warehouse, but it was stacked like one. I'd have boxes all over the place. And even behind me, you can see where things are changing. Yesterday, I went looking for something down at Valley Village and stumbled across a set of shelves that were real solid. Well, I bought them and moved them out to my storage unit. Which reminds me, I forgot to ask the person out there. So, best do that. Just to be on the safe side. But, and I may just do it through the insurance company, it depends on what's available. In any event, okay, what I'm looking at is this. If you're not content with something, then it's time to shift it. It's time to change the energy. Now, people are you're taught that change is painful, change is frightening. Let's look at the brass tacks of it. Every time you see something or think something, you're changing. So unless you're writhing in pain right now, it can't be a painful experience. Okay, not by just thinking about it. Now, I know some people, I swear, they've gone and that it hurts them to think. Like, I kid you not, I went to the store yesterday, and I pulled into the parking lot, and here is a little hatchback parked between two parking stalls. Right, they're parked on the line that separates parking stalls. Now, this is just plain either absolute incompetent driving, at which point you question how they got their license, or absolutely self-centered behavior. Okay. I have a problem with it, personally. Even if I pull into my own parking stall, I do my best to make certain that I'm parked in it properly. And now I am not a perfect park. I do not park perfectly. But I certainly am not about to park on top of somebody else's stall, and certainly not on the lines. But by taking, by getting focused on what you're not content with. I wasn't happy with the fact my left arm didn't work. Okay, and it used to be, after my stroke, I had to really focus to make sure that I got my coffee cup to my hand. I wouldn't even drink without the second hand on the cup. Okay, now I don't even really have to pay much attention to the side to it over here. My peripheral's working properly. Because of a lot of work, and that's the whole key to changing the way your life is. You've got to be the one doing the work. Okay, now I've got things set up here that once I'm done this video, I'll get it posted and carry on. But today, those files over there, okay, those are the hard copy for the Yldrbacian Chronicles. Okay, I've got them pulled down where I can actually work with them. Now, the thing that you have to remember is if you're not content with your life, you're the one that's going to have to change it. Get all the insight, all the guidance from people that you can to figure out how to do what you're aiming for. But here's the thing. Talk to somebody that's done it successfully. Now, I will tell you, I was told by I was told by one person that I was the only true racist that they'd ever met. Because most of the people that are called racists, what happens is you're told, oh, because you're this other color, or because you were born in this place, you're a lesser person. Okay. Or, because I was born into this bloodline, I'm a better person than you are. I'll tell you right now, I am definitely not better than other people. Certainly, I've got certain things worked out. But I looked at the person and told me, I says, you care to explain how you see me as being a racist? And they went, yeah. Everybody else picks a skin color, or a nationality, or a philosophy, and complain and says, that's the wrong, that person has problems. And they turned around and looked at me and went, in your case, you look at everybody. Doesn't matter where they come from. You look at everybody and go, you've all got the same problem. Okay. And, when I thought about it, they were absolutely right. Because I do not differentiate between people, regardless of your income. People that are said, there are people that are posted and are listed as being the top of their field. Okay. I talk to them the same way I'll talk to somebody on the street, or the same way I'll talk to a 5-year-old. Now, I'll start off with whatever conversation or whatever linguistics comes out for me. If the person, regardless of their education level, seems a little confused, I'll change the wording until I can get it down to a point that they can actually understand it. Now, I've seen this happen with children. I've seen it happen with people with their master's degrees. Okay, where I've had to rephrase things simply so they could understand what I was referring to. Because sad to say, I am not actually educated to speak of in the standard outlook. Okay, I did go to college, but frankly, I failed it miserably. Although, in all fairness, I got really good at ping pong. Yeah, I realize that. It's like I had to explain to one person. I run on instinct. If it feels right, I'll do it. Or I won't. Take your pick. We were dealing with an investment the other day where the investment was starting to tank. And it was suggested I pull my money out of said investment. Well, I actually made the effort. I only made the effort once, and the bank shut it down and said, you've got to do it yourself. Well, of course, that didn't work well. But in all fairness, when that happened, I didn't get the money out, and all of a sudden it started to rebound. Okay, so for me, this is a good thing. Okay, but we'll see what happens. I'm very much, when it comes to money, I always have been a case of, it doesn't make a lot of difference to me. Yes, what I have found out recently is having a fair chunk of money in the bank does make me feel more comfortable. It does take the stress off. And right now, Right now, I haven't been paid for the end of the month, but I've already got rent sitting in the bank. So, yeah, that takes a whole lot of stress off. But that came from really getting a handle on how to track where my money's going, not how to budget it, on how to organize my house to get the clutter out of the way. And again, it's not how to make other people think that, oh, your house is beautiful. It was a question of I was not content with it, so I changed the way it was done. Net result, my stress level has come down a staggering amount. The same thing can work for you, and I know it can because of the thousands of people I've actually explained this to that have put it to work, where it changed their lives. Okay. Now, it really boils down to whether you're content. Okay. Now, absolutely, my dad, he's passed away now 6 years ago. But he always said, I was raised in a Christian home. And my dad always said, even though he was the superintendent of Sunday schools, he always told us, read the Bible yourself. That's where you'll get the insight. Okay. Now, I still can't. I used to teach Sunday school. Even then, I could not quote Bible passages. Of course, in all fairness, in order to do that, you've got to remember what they are. I have trouble remembering people's names when I meet them, but that's at least getting better. Okay, so pick a goal that you desire to attain. Now, in my case, it's simple. Okay, I now have some pretty solid goals to deal with. Not the least of which is this one. Okay, I've been asked to get a backdrop put together. Okay, so with that in mind, ages ago, I had picked up a bunch of PCV piping, and I've made a stand that will sit right here behind my chair. And the reason for that is to enable photographs from your side. Okay, Talabi. And yes, you did see that. But I picked that up, and I've got to make sure I've got all the pieces for it today. Come to think of it, I should have picked up two of them. I picked up a backdrop sheet to work with it, to block out a lot of what's behind me. Now, not to get carried away with that, I'm not about to be using it for most of the time I'm on the videos. Okay. The reason I'm doing these, by the way, is this. I returned to this world, to this planet at this time to do one primary thing, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everyone. This said, it is going to require the work of virtually everyone to make it happen. Because your life, your little pocket of reality, that's your responsibility. You're the only one that can change the way your life is working. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I've seen some laws passed recently that come out of the Dark Ages. Okay. I was under the impression, apparently mistaken impression, that mankind as a whole was actually gaining in intellect. They were I thought they were dropping their intellect. That was proven too. But I thought they were gaining in their social etiquette, in their social intellect. Turns out that whoever's sitting in power now has dropped their IQ completely and has gone back to reenacting or reinstating laws that were back in the Middle Ages, and in all fairness, laws that even 50 years ago were created to provide freedom, or more to the point, to provide equality. Okay, and here we are 2 generations later. The same stupidity is coming back to bite us. Okay, and when this came out, when this was brought to one person's attention, they turned around and says, okay, so what's next? Take away the the abortion thing gets overturned, which is absolutely stupid in my eyes. I mean, realistically, and when I first got together with my first wife, we had this discussion. Now, I'm backwards, okay, because before we had our first child, before we even got married, she had asked my take on the whole idea of abortion. What happens if we get pregnant before we get married? I looked at her and I went, well, I says, one of two things happens. I says, the first question I'm going to ask is, do you desire to keep it? Because understand something here. A woman gets pregnant, and the reality is that she is going to, she changes right off the bat. Metabolically, mentally, the whole thing shifts for her, whether she keeps it or doesn't. The guy walks away. Yeah, he'll have the mental thing of, if he knows about it, I've got a kid out there. But like I told her, I says, it's up to you. I said, if you decide to keep it, that'll ask you the next question I was going to ask you anyway. Are you going to, do you want to get married? Will you marry me? If the answer is no, then I will simply help support the munchkin. Now, with that in mind, when my marriage collapsed, both of my kids I still help take care of. Well, in all fairness, one of them lives with me. The other one moved out on his own. But, when this topic came up, somebody I was talking to looked at me and goes, what are they going to do now and next? Remove the women's right to vote? This is going back to the Middle Ages, and here's the problem. Beyond the obvious. Okay. We start repealing these laws that have brought equality, a semblance of equality, into the world. Okay. And we've got a neat little problem. We are going to have problems. I'm talking globally. Now, everybody's still up in arms about the slavery that took place centuries back. What people don't get, they seem to be overlooking, is we're still dealing with slavery. And here's what I mean by that. I like the way it was posted on Facebook the other day. Here we are. We're working all the time at a job we don't like. Now, in my case, I like my job for the most part. You're working at a job you don't like to afford to pay for a car, to get to the job you don't like, so you can buy a whole bunch of stuff that you don't really require. Okay. And if you don't do it, you're in trouble. Well, bad news, that's called slavery. Okay. When they look at traditional slavery, okay, do this job or you don't get to eat. Well, guess what? You don't work, you don't get to eat. Now, the equality line on that is absolutely insane, but here's the thing. Every one of you requires food to stay alive. Okay. I think if I remember the numbers right, it's 3 seconds without air, or 3 minutes without air, 3 days without food, without water, and 3 weeks without food. You've all got the same problem, no matter where you come from. Okay, again, we're all going to die. It's time to focus on the positive, on the connections, on the similarities between people. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to get a few things done here. I'm at the half-hour mark, so I'm going to let you go. And I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.